Your cat sleeps somewhere between 12 and 18 hours a day, which means more of their entire life is spent asleep than awake, and yet almost nobody actually pays attention to how they do it. Not where they sleep, not the position, not what changes from night to night, not even which direction they end up facing once they finally settle. And that is a genuine missed opportunity, because sleep position in cats is not random at all. It is one of the most honest, unfiltered windows into exactly how safe, how comfortable, and how connected to you your cat actually feels in any given moment. A cat cannot fake a sleep position the way they might perform a greeting at the door. When they are asleep, the guard is down, literally, and what their body chooses to do in that state tells you something real. So today, we are decoding exactly what every major sleep position and sleep spot actually means. And by the end of this video, you will never look at a sleeping cat the same way again. If you are new here, welcome to Cat Rules, where we translate real feline science into something you can actually use with the cat asleep on your couch right now. Let's get into it. Let's start with the tight curl, the classic ball shape, nose tucked near the tail, paws pulled in close, spine rounded, tail often wrapped around the body like a final protective seal. This is probably the single most iconic cat sleeping position, and it serves two very clear biological purposes at once. First, thermoregulation. Curling into a tight ball dramatically reduces a cat's exposed surface area, which helps them conserve body heat, something that mattered enormously for their wild ancestors surviving cold nights with no shelter beyond their own body. Second, and just as importantly, protection. In this position, the vital organs, throat and belly, are all tucked away and shielded, while the cat remains coiled and ready to spring into action almost instantly if something startles them. This is why the tight curl is the position you will see most often in unfamiliar environments, a new home, a vet clinic, a car ride, or simply on a cooler day. It is not necessarily a sign of distress. Plenty of perfectly content cats default to this position simply out of habit or temperature preference, but it does represent a slightly more cautious, self-protective baseline than some of the other positions we are about to cover, and a cat who almost exclusively sleeps this way, even in familiar, warm environments, may be running a bit more on guard than a fully relaxed cat typically does. Next, the loaf position, sometimes called the Sphinx pose. Paws tucked neatly underneath the body, head up or gently resting forward, spine in a smooth, compact curve that genuinely does resemble a loaf of bread. This position sits in an interesting middle ground, more relaxed than the tight defensive curl, but not fully vulnerable either. A loafing cat is comfortable enough to rest their muscles and drift towards sleep, but their body position still allows them to spring up relatively quickly if needed, since their legs remain coiled and ready underneath them rather than fully extended and disengaged. You will often see this position during light dozing rather than deep sleep, a cat keeping one paw, so to speak, in the waking world while still getting real rest. It is an extremely common, healthy, unremarkable position, essentially your cat's version of resting comfortably on a couch without fully committing to a nap. Now let's talk about the side sprawl, fully stretched out on one side, legs extended, belly at least partially visible, body completely loose and unguarded. This is where things get genuinely meaningful because this position requires a level of trust that a cat simply does not extend casually. Remember, in the wild, an animal lying on its side, belly exposed, legs extended and not coiled for quick movement, is about as vulnerable as a prey or small predator animal can physically be. A cat choosing this position is making a clear, embodied statement. This environment is safe enough that instant readiness is not necessary right now. If your cat sleeps sprawled on their side near you regularly, that is not a small thing. That is a consistent, repeated vote of confidence in their environment, and very often, specifically in your presence within it. If you are enjoying learning what these small, everyday behaviors actually mean, this is exactly the kind of content this channel is built around, so go ahead and subscribe if you have not already, because there is a section coming up about the single most vulnerable sleep position a cat can choose, and what it means if your cat picks it specifically near you. Let's talk about the belly-up position. Fully on their back, belly completely exposed, paws often loosely curled in the air, sometimes with the head tilted at an almost comically relaxed angle. This is, without exaggeration, the single most vulnerable position available to a cat, exposing the throat and abdomen entirely, with essentially no ability to spring into defensive action quickly from that posture. In the wild, this position would be reserved for the absolute safest possible circumstances, and that instinct has not disappeared just because your cat has never actually encountered a real predator. A cat sleeping belly up in your home is displaying about as much trust as their body language vocabulary allows them to express. It is worth noting one important caveat here. This does not mean the belly itself wants to be touched. That vulnerability during sleep is different from an invitation for contact, and many cats who sleep belly up will still react defensively if that exposed belly is touched while they are awake and alert. The position communicates trust in the environment generally, not necessarily a standing invitation for belly rubs specifically, and respecting that distinction matters if you want to keep earning the kind of trust that produces this position in the first place. Now, the burrito position, tucked entirely under a blanket, in a box, or beneath furniture, sometimes with just a nose or a paw peeking out into the open air. This one gets a little more nuanced because it can mean a few different things depending on context. On one hand, cats are drawn to enclosed spaces because they mimic the safety of a den or a cave, offering protection from all sides and a sense of controlled, limited exposure, which is why cardboard boxes remain endlessly appealing no matter how many actual cat beds a household accumulates. On the other hand, an increase in this kind of deeply hidden sleeping behavior, especially if it represents a change from your cat's normal pattern, can sometimes signal that a cat is feeling less secure in general, whether from a new stressor in the home, an illness, or simply needing more downtime than usual. Context and change matter more than the position itself here. An occasional burrito nap is simply a cozy, instinct-driven preference, but a sudden, sustained shift toward hiding away to sleep, especially away from previously favored spots, deserves the same kind of attention we have talked about before regarding withdrawal and changes in normal behavior patterns. Let's talk about location now, because where a cat chooses to sleep carries just as much information as how their body is positioned once they get there. Sleeping near you, on the bed, on the couch beside you, or even just in the same room rather than isolated elsewhere in the house, reflects both a temperature preference, since you radiate warmth a cat's body finds genuinely appealing, and a social preference, choosing proximity to a trusted individual during their most vulnerable state. Sleeping directly on top of you takes this even further, since it requires both physical trust and often genuine attachment, given that it means positioning themselves in a spot where your movement could disturb or even displace them at any moment, a trade-off most cats would not accept for just anyone, let alone someone they viewed with any real uncertainty. High perches, the top of a cat tree, a bookshelf, the back of a tall piece of furniture tap into a different, older instinct entirely. The advantage height provides for surveying territory and avoiding ground-level threats, an instinct inherited directly from wild ancestors who used elevation as a survival strategy against both predators and rival animals. A cat who frequently chooses high sleeping spots is not necessarily less bonded to you. They may simply be satisfying a strong territorial and security instinct that has nothing to do with their feelings toward the people in the household, and providing accessible high perches is one of the simplest, most effective forms of environmental enrichment available for cats who show this preference strongly. Windowsills deserve their own mention because sleeping there blends several motivations at once: warmth from sunlight, an excellent vantage point for monitoring outdoor activity even while dozing, and often simply the most comfortable available surface temperature in the house at a given time of day. This is generally one of the most neutral sleep spot choices in terms of what it says about bonding specifically. It tends to be driven more by physical comfort and environmental stimulation than by anything related to trust or attachment toward household members. Here is a question worth thinking about. Has your cat's favorite sleep spot changed recently? And if it has, did anything else in the household change around the same time? Let's talk about co-sleeping in multi-cat households, because the physical distance and contact between two sleeping cats is genuinely one of the clearest, most honest indicators of their actual relationship available, arguably more reliable than watching how they interact while both are awake and alert. Cats who sleep touching, curled together, draped over one another, or sharing a single small bed, despite having plenty of other space available, are displaying a level of trust and bonding that essentially cannot be faked, because sleep is exactly the state in which a cat is least able to defend themselves if the relationship were actually tense or hostile. This kind of physical closeness during sleep typically appears between cats who were raised together from a young age, litter mates especially, or between cats who have built a strong bond over years of cohabitation, and it tends to intensify during colder weather when the added benefit of shared body heat layers on top of the social comfort. Cats who sleep in the same general room but maintain clear physical distance, choosing separate surfaces or opposite ends of a couch, are often displaying what behaviorists call a peaceful coexistence rather than an active bond, comfortable enough to be unguarded in each other's general presence, but not extending the deeper vulnerability of physical contact. And cats who consistently sleep in entirely separate rooms, actively avoiding proximity even during their most vulnerable state, are typically signaling ongoing tension or an unresolved territorial dynamic that has not really eased despite time spent living together, which is useful information if you are trying to figure out whether two cats in your household are actually bonded or simply tolerating a shared space. Now let's clear up a myth that gets aimed at cats constantly and honestly, kind of unfairly, the idea that sleeping 12 to 18 hours a day makes cats lazy. This framing completely misunderstands the actual evolutionary logic behind feline sleep patterns. Cats are ambush predators, built around short, extremely intense bursts of energy required for stalking and capturing prey, rather than the sustained, endurance-based activity that pack hunting or grazing animals rely on. That hunting strategy is metabolically expensive in short bursts and requires substantial energy reserves to execute effectively and repeatedly, which means extensive rest between activity periods is not laziness at all. It is a deeply efficient energy management strategy that has been refined over millions of years of evolution as a small predator balancing calorie intake against calorie expenditure. A domestic cat sleeping through most of the day is running the exact same biological program that would have them conserving energy between hunts in the wild, even though the modern version of that program involves waiting for a food bowl rather than stalking actual prey. Far from being a character flaw or a sign of boredom, that extensive sleep schedule is a cat's biology working exactly as it was designed to. And understanding this can genuinely change how you think about your cat's daily rhythm. Less an animal being unmotivated, more an efficient predator conserving resources between the moments that actually matter, while sleeping relative to a door or open space in the room. Cats, even in a completely secure home, often position themselves so they retain some visual or auditory awareness of entry points, facing a doorway rather than turning their back to it, or choosing a spot with a clear sightline to the main access point of a room. This reflects a low-level, largely unconscious vigilance that persists even in cats who otherwise show every sign of feeling completely safe. It is not necessarily a sign of anxiety. Most cats display this preference to some degree, but a cat who becomes notably more insistent about it, refusing to settle unless facing an exit, or startling awake more easily than usual from a position they previously slept deeply in, may be signaling a slight increase in overall stress or vigilance worth paying attention to alongside other behavioral cues. Now let's cover twitching and movement during sleep, because this is one of the questions that comes up constantly, and the science here is genuinely reassuring for most owners worried they are seeing something wrong. Paw twitches, whisker movements, soft vocalizations, and even brief tail flicks during sleep are almost always associated with REM sleep, the same active dreaming phase humans experience, during which the brain remains highly active even though the body is largely paralyzed to prevent acting out those internal movements. Research using brain activity monitoring in sleeping cats has shown patterns consistent with active dream states, and behaviorists generally believe cats dream about exactly the sort of things you would expect, given their waking priorities, hunting sequences, play, and familiar routine activities, essentially replaying and reinforcing the same behaviors that matter most to their waking survival strategy. The same way human dream content often echoes whatever occupied the most emotional or cognitive bandwidth during the day. Unless twitching is accompanied by genuine distress, labored breathing, difficulty waking, or movement that looks more like a seizure than a normal twitch, occasional sleep movement is a completely healthy, normal part of a cat's sleep cycle, not something to worry about or interrupt. Let's talk briefly about how much all of this can shift with age, because sleep position and preference genuinely change over a cat's lifespan in ways worth understanding rather than misreading as something concerning. Kittens sleep in extraordinarily high total volumes, often exceeding even the adult range, and tend to sleep in tight, huddled clusters with litter mates when available, reflecting both a strong thermoregulation need given their smaller body mass and a powerful early social bonding instinct that helps establish the foundation for how they relate to close contact for the rest of their lives. As cats reach their senior years, sleep positions often shift toward the more compact, protective postures, the tight curl or loaf, more frequently than the fully exposed, vulnerable stretches, partly due to joint stiffness or arthritis making fully extended positions less physically comfortable, and partly reflecting a general age-related preference for warmth and physical security. A senior cat sleeping in a more curled, protected position more often than they did as a younger adult is not necessarily a sign of reduced trust or growing insecurity. It may simply reflect a changing physical body seeking the most comfortable posture available to it, though, as we have discussed in previous videos, any sudden or dramatic shift in an older cat's normal patterns, sleep included, is always worth mentioning at their next veterinary visit, rather than assuming it is purely cosmetic. So what should you actually take away from all of this the next time you glance over at your sleeping cat, curled up somewhere in your house, doing what looks like nothing at all, but is actually communicating quite a lot if you know how to read it? Position and location together tell a real, honest story. A tight curl in a quiet corner suggests a cat who is comfortable but keeping some natural caution. A loose sprawl or belly-up position near you represents a genuine, embodied vote of trust that a cat does not extend lightly. A high perch or windowsill reflects instinct and environmental comfort more than anything relational, and any sudden, sustained shift away from a cat's established pattern toward more hiding, more tension, more vigilance facing the door deserves the same attentive noticing we have talked about in previous videos regarding subtle behavioral change. You do not need to overanalyze every single nap. Cats change positions constantly throughout a sleep cycle for entirely ordinary reasons. But building a general sense of your own cat's typical pattern gives you a genuinely useful baseline for noticing when something meaningful actually shifts. Before you go, I want you to actually try something tonight. Take 30 seconds and really look at how your cat is sleeping, the position, the location, which direction they are facing, and think about what we just covered. Are they curled tight and cautious, or sprawled out completely unguarded near you, or maybe draped over another cat in the house in a way that finally explains a relationship you were never quite sure about? Drop your cat's go to sleep position in the comments. I am genuinely curious how many belly-up sleepers are out there versus tight curl loyalists. And honestly, these comment sections always end up being one of the best parts of putting a video like this together. If this changed how you are going to look at your cat's next nap, that is exactly what we make these videos for. Subscribe if you have not already, because we have a lot more of this kind of practical, science-backed content coming every single week. We will see you in the next one, and try not to wake them up just to test the theory.